This is the 5th episode of the Shelvage Podcast. For those of you that are new to the podcast, I am David, otherwise known as Shelvage. This all started with my Instagram account that is also named Shelvage, and that expanded to this YouTube channel and this podcast, which is now on YouTube, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you want to listen to the podcast. I'm really excited in particular for a few segments, but we'll get into some industry news and I'll share some articles that I've come across that I think are noteworthy. I'm going to reply to a few questions that a good friend Ashwin, or WeltedWare, as he's known on YouTube and Instagram, he recorded a few questions for me, and I'm going to let you all hear them, and then I'm going to reply to them here on the podcast. Then I will share a tip of the day or a tip of the episode, the podcast, the week. I guess it depends on when you're listening to it, but I'll share a tip. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a conversation that I had with Alberto Suastez. For those of you that listened to the last 2 episodes, I featured Alberto in those episodes as he was one of the 3 finalists in the World Championships of Patina that was held at the London Super Trunk Show earlier this year. In that conversation, we covered a wide range of topics. The part of the conversation I'm going to share today is specifically around his experience with the London Super Trunk Show. So I'm really excited to share that with all of you. I think you'll enjoy it as much as I enjoyed having that conversation. Let's get started with the Shoe Snob blog. Now, this article, I'm going to have that, conversation with myself again now. Is it an article, a blog post? I'm just going to call it an article this week. This is called How to Avoid Getting Scammed by Fake Shoe Brands. This is from Justin Fitzpatrick on the Shoe Snob blog, and I'll share that link in the show notes and the description of the video if you're watching on YouTube. This is a topic that really resonates with me. I was actually going to do a video just for my YouTube channel where, I found an image of mine that was being used by one of these brands to sell their shoes, and I thought it would be interesting to buy that pair of shoes and then make a video about what it is that I got. Instead of talking about the theoretical video, I was thinking about let's look at the article that Justin actually did create. Now, this topic in general is one that probably the majority of folks listening are going to be like, well, this is kind of obvious. I mean, how could anybody fall for that? But I wouldn't be surprised if, there are folks out there that have and will continue to fall for these types of scams. They wouldn't continue doing it if they weren't catching people, up in this, fake business scam, as I think Justin is referring to it here. I'll put the link in the description and the show notes for this article so that you can kind of dive into the weeds of it if you would like, but I'm going to focus on one particular section of it where he lists 5 suggestions or kind of telltale signs for how you can spot a fake brand like this. Number 1 is the pictures are inconsistent, and I 100% agree with that. Even if a shoemaker or a brand doesn't have a professional photographer, they're at least going to be taking the pictures themselves at the same time in the same place, location, lighting, so you're going to get similar colors, the same shoes, the same kind of overall theme picture to picture. And if you see just completely random pictures that look completely different just from the exposure or the colors, that's definitely a red flag. Number 2 is multiple addresses listed on their website. While there could definitely be a possibility, a valid reason to have multiple addresses on your site, if there's 2, 3, 4, 5 different addresses, all of them are just kind of sporadically placed. No real rhyme or reason as to why one would be located in one country, another in another country. Definitely a red flag and something to be cautious about. Number 3 is no contact information on the website at all. Obviously, I think that's self-explanatory. Even if it's a valid business, if they don't give you a way to contact them, it's probably a reason to kind of press pause on any purchases. Number 4 are fake reviews. Now, again, there are multiple reasons what a fake review could be. Some of the generic examples Justin shared are shoes are great. Love it, amazing, fantastic brand. Things like that could either be incentivized by the business, so it's a real customer reviewing it, but they're just being paid to do that, or just being offered a discount to do it. In this case, it's kind of framed in a position that it's just a completely fake review. Like there's no consumer that's actually like sharing that. It's just the person that's running the fake business creating that review to kind of give some like validity to the brand and to the business. And obviously like that's another red flag that when you put that on top of the first three, it definitely should already kind of be setting off all the alarm bells and you should just kind of like run away from that website. But if at this point you're still thinking about making the purchase, if the price is just too good to be true, like they're too cheap to be able to make, it's not that the business is trying to be kind and give you a fantastic deal. It's probably the latter, that it's just not actually what they are telling you you're going to get. And that's what Justin's talking about here. Basically, like the fixed cost with a leather dress shoe, the cost of the leather, the process of a Goodyear welded shoe, all the different components, those are going to far exceed like the $100 or $200 price point. So it makes it practically impossible to go ahead and sell it for anything under that. I think this is a great article just from the standpoint of like raising the awareness that this stuff is going on. And if you like ever looked at a shoe on eBay, within like 2 minutes of you going back on eBay, your feed or like your suggestions will be like flooded with these types of examples. So even if it's for nothing but just like reminding you like, hey, like ignore this stuff, here are some of the key things that you should look out for. I think it's definitely worth giving a read, and obviously I thought it was worthwhile to discuss here. Before we get into the questions that Ashwin sent over, let me pull up this YouTube video I want to share or kind of spotlight for everyone. And let me switch over to that right now. For those that are familiar with my YouTube channel and Instagram account, I'm a big fan of Pure Polish Products. And this is Andy, the owner of Pure Polish Products. He made this video really kind of breaking down and demonstrating how to use the high shine paste. That's upside down. The high shine paste. For those that are just listening to the podcast, I've got 2 tins of Pure Polish Products here that I'm just kind of showing that I used on a pair of shoes actually right before I recorded this. And I'm sharing a video that Andy Vaughn, the owner of Pure Polish Products, a leather care and footwear care company, recently published, where he kind of gives a quick behind the scenes of how he makes the high shine paste, and then kind of walks through like the reasons that you would use it, the benefits of using it, and it kind of ends up with like a full start to finish demonstration of how to properly use the high shine paste product from Pure Polish. Really exciting to see this, and I hope he continues to create new content and kind of a diverse collection of content around how to use, how it's created, all of the benefits of Pure Polish Products, because honestly, it's something that I would always recommend Pure Polish Products over any of their competitors. I'm not affiliated with Andy in any way or Pure Polish Products. Just him and I are friends, fellow community members of the, classic or traditional footwear world, but I just genuinely enjoy using it. It has a very pleasant user experience, from the smell to the actual like results and benefits that it provides to the leather. Let's jump into those questions that Ashwin sent over. Ashwin also goes by WeltedWare on YouTube and Instagram. And I'm going to be expanding this in future podcast episodes. I'll put a link up on my new website, which I'll share next week. And it'll give you the option to click into that link, record a question, a comment, feedback, whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to play those and reply to them in future episodes. Now, if it's complete nonsense or just like a garbage, question, like unrelated, say, that's a better way of framing it. It may not get on the podcast, but as long as it's a genuine question or comment, definitely something that'll be featured in the following episode. Let's go ahead and listen to the first question.
Chrome tan versus vegetable tanned leather. I'm trying to figure out what the differences are and why they would matter. Can you tell me more?
This is a great question. I'm going to take a step back first. For those that may not be as familiar with the different like processing of leathers and of like the traditional footwear community, the tanning process is kind of a critical pillar of making sure that you pick the right shoe. So the leather tannery has multiple processes and styles of tanning the leather, and each of them kind of have their advantages and disadvantages depending on the use case and the purpose of the shoe that you're buying. Vegetable tanning is much more like labor intensive. It takes a longer, actual time to complete the tanning process, and typically it becomes a more expensive leather. Chrome tanning is exactly like what it sounds like. It has, not like synthetic tannins, but maybe that's what the proper term is. It's a more chemical based tannage than like vegetable tannins. Chrome tan and vegetable tan leather, again, like there's reasons that both could be, viewed as better than the other. It all depends on the type of leather and the characteristics that you're looking for. And there's even the possibility of it being like a combination tan where you would vegetable tan the leather and then chrome tan the leather after that first vegetable tanning. And that'll give you a different result than just doing one or the other. If I take a step back again and just think about like, it's the characteristics that the tanning process provides as opposed to one being superior or always a better option than the other. The best way that I can try to represent this is just to share like two quick examples. For those of you that are watching, I'm showing a hatch grain leather, which is the Baker replica Russian reindeer. This is a vegetable tan leather. I'll do a close-up on it as well. But when you look at this, it has a very like natural, kind of like unfinished feel to it. And that's kind of the epitome of like vegetable tannage, is that it should kind of have a more like less processed feel, characteristic, and like look to it. When we talk about chrome tan leathers, this example that I'm now holding is Horween hatch grain leather. Now this is typically a leather that has like a combination of like vegetable and chrome tan, but the chrome tan finish or the chrome retan gives it a bit more of a uniform look. It doesn't have as natural or like as unprocessed of a look as the vegetable tan one did, and that is really just the result of like the different tannins that are included in the chrome tan process. From a standpoint of like which is better to use in different use cases, it's really going to depend on like the raw material. So like a cowhide versus a calfskin, a horsehide versus a calfskin, like all of these different like combinations or comparisons are dependent upon like what you plan to use the leather for. What I'll say, like for my personal preference, I typically prefer like a vegetable tan leather or a combination tan. When you get into like smooth calfskins, chrome tan leathers can sometimes tend to be on the overdone side, and it becomes like very uniform and you like can't see the pores at all just because of how heavy the finishing is on that leather. It's not necessarily the chrome tanning that's doing it, but it's just kind of the overall like surrounding processes for chrome tannage is like they're trying to create a much more uniform end result. Let's take a quick listen to the next question from Ashwin.
Goodyear welting versus hand welting and resolability. This is a question that I have had for some time because I'm trying to figure out that if I'm building a collection with long-term sustainability, I obviously are going to want to have shoes that are resolable. And is it easier to have a Goodyear welted shoe resoled because of the welting process being so universally applied? I think most of us in this community think that hand welted shoes are of higher quality, at least in the upper end of those who are doing hand welting. So does that make it harder to resold on the road if you're trying to preserve your shoes long term?
Another great question from Ashwin, or series of questions. He's definitely getting the award for the best questions of the episode. I guess he is the only one that's asking the questions this episode, but he'll still get that award for this week. To answer the direct question first, like will a hand welded shoe last longer than a Goodyear welded shoe? Not necessarily yes or no. It really all depends on how well you care for it. The main reason that both of them are equally resolable is the sole is attached through the outsole stitch, not the welt. It is attached to the welt, but not through the welt stitch. So when they attach the welt to the upper with a Goodyear welt machine or by hand, that stitch will be maintained during the resoling process. All that the cobbler is going to do is detach the outsole and then attach a new one. And just because someone may have hand stitched the outsole on, at the factory or at their workshop, doesn't mean that somebody else can't use a machine or can't stitch it by hand right back on there. That said, you will need to be able to find somebody that has that proper hand skilled technique if you want it done the same way that it was done, when it was first made. So the question begs itself, what is better about a hand welded shoe? Simply put, handmade goods or the handwork is opening up the realm of possibilities. With a machine-made shoe, you're not going to be able to get as narrow of a waist. You're not going to be able to do the same finishing that one could do by hand, and it's going to require a lot more skill to be able to do that work by hand. If you want to have that notched, waist to heel transition, if you want to have a narrower or a tapered heel, if you want to have a higher stitch density, all of these things kind of start with the foundation of the handmade shoe versus a machine-made shoe. It's not necessarily that one is more durable or less durable. It's just what possibilities does that construction type open up for you? I think that answered all the questions Ashwin outlined for us. If you have any follow-up thoughts or questions, definitely share those in the comments. And really looking forward to hearing some questions from everyone that's listening here. Let's get into the tip for this episode, and that's going to be using water while you're brushing your shoes, particularly shell Cordovan. For those that are watching on YouTube, again, I'm going to cut to some B-roll clips of this in action, but essentially think of this as when you're trying to develop a higher shine on the toe and the heel. When you introduce the water to the wax or just to the leather, it does raise the luster up a little bit. The water acts like a solvent and it kind of smooths everything out. You're using a cloth for that process, but when you put a few drops of water either on the leather or on the bristles of your brush, and then you go to brush the leather, that water kind of acts as the same thing. If you're trying to brush off a heavy layer of dust or dirt, just trying to get rid of some of the grime that has built up on the leather, introducing some water and then brushing it is going to expedite that process. For those that are just listening to the podcast, I have a pair of my bourbon shell Cordovan Crown Northampton Harleston sneakers. I wore these to the park and they've obviously been kind of put through, a normal day of wear. They've got a ton of dust, dirt on both shoes. I'm brushing the right shoe with just a dry horsehair brush, and I'm going to brush the left shoe with the same horsehair brush, but I'm going to add a few droplets of water every few brushes just to, demonstrate visually what it is that I'm going to kind of articulate about why I think this is kind of a shoe care hack. Both look really good. I think the left shoe, shined up to a luster a bit faster and kind of has a bit higher luster as we look at it right now. I think the big takeaway here is if we look at the right shoe first, you can still see a bit of a matte luster on the side of the right shoe, on the right side of the right shoe. A little bit of the same on the vamp across the crease, as well as the left, the inner part of the right shoe. When we look at the left shoe, it's got a much more even, a bit of a higher luster on it. Not a high shine, but just, it's smooth to the touch, and I think you can see that glossier shell Cordovan finish much easier just by using a few droplets of water as we did that brushing. All right, let's get into this conversation with Alberto. A little bit of background here. So Alberto and I have known each other for a few years. I think we first met on some of the different Facebook communities around traditional shoes, and we've interacted on multiple levels over the years, and I've really kind of built a friendship as much as you can, just knowing somebody online. Alberto has been doing patina for, I think, maybe like 2 or 3 years now. I guess I should have probably asked, now that I think about it, all the questions and that one I missed. But yeah, he's just a great guy, does very unique, very like professional patina work from an aesthetic and just like a process perspective when you look at it that way. I think he's doing things the right way, and obviously like that's important. This is the World Championships of Patina that was at the London Super Trunk Show earlier this year. Alberto entered the contest. He was chosen as one of the 3 finalists, and then he got to participate in the live patina contest, in front of everyone that was in attendance. I'll kind of reserve anything else for the conversation that you'll hear in a second here between Alberto and I. Really excited to share this conversation. Hope you all enjoy. Like, how big was the whole like event there?
Um, so it's actually done on the ground floor of a like a really nice building. And so in down London, I think square footage, I want to say maybe, I don't know, 3,000 square feet. So it's not a huge area actually, maybe 4,000 square feet. Yeah, and so, maybe a couple hundred people showed up as far as, actual traffic. But I really like that about the event, that it's not thousands of people and thousands of booths, that, you can really spend the time going from booth to booth and talking to the owners. So I think that was pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know if that's how they're gonna do it in New York though.
Like, how did that? Like, what was the process? Because like the entries just opened for like this month, so like in relation, like how do you like enter and then
Yeah.
get picked, and how did that all happen?
So I got to tell you kind of a funny story. I say it's funny now, but I think, and I don't know if it's Jesper or Jesper either, like you were saying, but I'll say Jesper. I think Jesper was a little bit frustrated with me because of how it came about, but I'll tell you the story. Um, so the actual contest, the World Championship has happened 3 times. This is the third time, I believe. I think it was 2019, then 2 pandemic years it didn't happen, 2022, and then now 2023. Um, and I submitted entries for 2 of them. So not the first year, but then, well, 3 years, because it was suspended 2 years, the 2 pandemic years. And every time I
Yeah.
submitted my entry, I would get kind of like the thank you very much, but we've selected the 3 top finalists. And to be honest, I was not confident in any of my entries up until last year or this year. I submitted my entry sometime early in the year, like January, February, something like that. And I think that they're usually about 25 to 30 entries. Again, I don't know the specifics, but I think that's what I heard from all over the world. And so I submitted it this year in early in the year, January, February, March, some one of the two. And I don't hear back, and so I'm thinking, just there's no chance I'm going to be selected. Although I feel pretty confident in my entry. Um, didn't make any plans really to attend. So
Yeah.
just being completely up and open with you. And then I get the communication from Jesper in mid-April. Alberto, you're going to be to London, as one of the finalists for the live competition. And my jaw drops because I don't even have a passport. And so I tell my wife, and I'm scared to death because now we have to spend time on an expedited, if I even make it, if I even get a passport, because it's less than,
Sorry. What? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. When was the contest, or
it
when was
was
the?
mid-May,
Oh, so less than a month.
less than a month. So you have me scrambling, for the application for the expedited passport. Long story short, I get my passport the day before I leave. And so I told my wife, what if we just make it a trip? You and I go for the competition, but we stay before and after. So that was kind of it came down to the wire for me to actually go. But yeah, so I submitted my entry. So they send out an open invitation. If you want to enter, you have to submit 3 pictures, I believe, of the patinated shoes and 3 different angles. I think 3 different pictures, and that's all you can do.
The picture of the penny loafer that you sent me, or did you?
Yeah, it was the picture of Penny Loafer, and what I was trying to represent there is the kind of the natural patina that copper develops over time, the oxidation that it kind of develops over time, develops some green and turquoise tones in there. Um, it was more again of an artistic take that rather than a shoe that could be worn out, for
Yeah.
work or something like that. So that's kind of where most of my work is going, something more exploratory than actually something that can be worn for the most part. Um, so yeah, I was just like, you know what? This looks pretty cool. Maybe I have a chance. So I submitted it and lo and behold.
Maybe just like in general, like I feel like sometimes like the a patina that you see, like depending on how it's photographed,
Yeah.
could
Okay.
look much better, could look much worse, or could like miss out on some of the depth and like the different colors.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. Um, so a couple of um, full disclosures before I do that, because I think it'll give you more insight as to why I'm saying what I'm saying. I did not finish my patina during the live competition the way I had practiced and envisioned. So the way you see it photographed at the end of the competition is not what I envisioned, my final product being. So when I looked at them, there was the what do you call that? The fluorescent lighting
Yeah,
inside the building. And so that's not good for pictures. It
right.
accentuates certain things and
It's like a tungsten, like yellowish. Yeah,
exactly.
really like
So
harsh. Just
exactly, really harsh. And so when I was looking at it, really close to my face, my transitions looked smoother than when they took the pictures. And I think they had some flash. It just made it look like one color started here and ended abruptly, and the other one started. Whereas when I was looking at it, it didn't look quite as harsh. Yeah, so that's indoors. Yeah. So and that's
so this.
outdoors, and you can see
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So like this. I mean, I think like
Exactly.
that. I think that looks like pretty like clean. And then like here, like
That
it's
looks
you
harsh.
see,
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
almost like it's like the it's like looking at any shoe under like a super bright light. Like it would, you're gonna like see
Exactly.
through the leather. 'Cause
Yeah,
you see like through like the translucent parts that aren't really translucent. I don't know. It's like when you look at a pair of shell indoor as opposed to like outside.
exactly.
You can
Yeah,
see like the like underneath or see through the
like the top layer.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, to be fair, when you look at their indoor pictures, this guy, the green pair, I mean, it's spot on, because that's exactly what it looks like. So his transitions were better, etc. Knowing that even when he was asked, are you happy with how it turned out? He's like, he being a perfectionist as he is, he's like, yeah, I mean, it was okay, but you can see his transitions are, spot on, even in pretty crappy lighting. So, hats off to him and the other contestant. Their transitions were just better because they finished, their patina, whereas mine, I just ran out of time.
So like yours is the only pair that's like fully like impregnated impregnated. What did I say? Fully
Right.
like impregnated with like the color. I feel like
Right.
these. So like there had to have been a lot more just like time going into putting that many like layers of
Yeah.
dye in it versus, and like like not taking anything away from them, like obviously with like a time limit, maybe like
Yeah.
their strategy did work out better where they weren't
Yeah.
going to kind of
Exactly.
fully
Well, it
uh
is. Yeah, it is a
saturate the
competition.
leather, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they executed their strategy better because I've seen their work. I mean, man, these guys can create some pretty crazy patinas. But see, that's a good point. And thank you for again for giving me the opportunity because when you see this harsh of a color scheme, right, you're thinking, this guy's crazy for going for something like this. But here's the point, that technical point that might have been missed by many people if they don't know about patina, et cetera, or color theory in general. When you have contrasting colors like purple and green, when you combine them, when you mix them, they actually make kind of a grayish mess. And so, knowing that I was going to be judged on, the quality of the patina or the concept or a combination of all these things together, my goal was I don't want to make a grayish mess in when the two colors meet. And so now when you look at the final product, the video that I showed you, you don't see that, grayish mess. And so that's what I wanted to kind of, get to at some point. And so, the technical execution of it, and that they would be like, oh, see, when he combined the purple and the green, it doesn't make a grayish mess. So it's well executed. And so again, I didn't get to that, but that was the whole objective, to show the technical ability and the knowledge of color theory and the application, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I mean, in reality, you only have like one chance. If you like did something you didn't want to do,
right.
and the result was the same,
Yeah,
like somebody else won, like you would have been questioning, like I should have just gone with my gut the whole time anyway.
exactly.
And you may have just answered the last question if I can squeeze it in. Is like, is there anything that you would have done differently?
There is something I would have done differently. I didn't even read the the contest, what it would entail. I was just like, I'm just gonna submit it. It'll be something fun. And I'll get my usual thank you, but no thank you, for your participation, for your entry. And so when I hear back that I'm selected for it, I see my entry was a penny loafer, right? And so my goal was, if in the case, in the very improbable case that I get selected, they will probably select a different shoe style for me to do a patina on, um, other than a loafer. So I'll just recreate my copper patina onto a different pattern, a wingtip or a Capto, Oxford, or whatever the case is. That was my goal, to have the same color scheme, same formulas I use for a patina that I'm very, very comfortable creating. And I think it would create a splash, in the jury of saying, oh, this is something unique, very different than anything that we've seen. So sure. Well, the contest, I read the contest and I'm to create a patina on a penny loafer, which I just submitted the entry with. And so, number one, I would have, if I'm being honest with myself, I needed to take more time in reading what the contest was about and what the guidelines were, so that I would have planned a little bit better. But in my own disbelief, of thinking, no, nobody's gonna pick me, I did not read, I did not do any of the homework. That probably didn't help the American stereotype of, eh, just do your things your way or whatever. But it was mostly the disbelief that, you know, I would get picked.
So, what'd you guys think of that conversation? I got to be honest. Like, Alberto's like thought process was much more intentional, I guess, than what I was expecting. Not that I'm saying like I didn't think he was an intentional person, but there was just kind of he was on a different level from a standpoint of like the color theory and all of this, all of the technical aspects behind the patina that he wanted to do. And I just kind of thought that was like really, really fascinating. For those of you that have made it this far into the podcast, I really do appreciate it. I know it takes a lot of time to listen to a podcast, this long, and the support, the participation, it means a lot to me. Put a comment below. Let me know what your favorite part of the conversation with Alberto was. And if you think I missed any question, or if there's a question you would like to ask either me or Alberto for the next time him and I have a conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed everything. Let me know what you think about the different format, the different types of content, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.